Hey, welcome to day 41. Today you're going to learn more about OOP, Object-Oriented Programming, and classes. Yesterday you learned the syntax of creating a class. We didn't work a lot about the logic, why you should use classes and when. These are things that you'll learn today. So yesterday you learned that to create a class, you need the class keyword, and then the class has one or more methods. One of the methods was a special method, that's the init method, underscore, underscore, init, underscore, underscore. You also learned that all the methods have a self parameter as the first parameter. And you also probably learned that you are still completely lost when it comes to object-oriented programming. But that's why we have more days to work on object-oriented programming. So today we will build an app from scratch and I'll lead you step by step explaining in detail not only the syntax but also the logic behind creating an app in OOP paradigm. So let's see in the next video what this app will consist of. I'll see you there. Hey, welcome back. Please don't skip this video because this is quite important. You're going to learn the difference between a class and an instance, and once you are clear what the difference is, then it's easier for you to create applications using object-oriented programming in Python. Alright, so I already gave you some clue what is a class and what is an instance in the previous day. So you saw, for example, that email, this here is a class, but then in here, this one here is an instance. However, I think that is not enough for you to understand the differences between classes and instances because the programming world is abstract. So what I want to do now is I want to have another example from the real world. So let's say when I created this course, the Python Mega course, before producing any video or any coding exercises, I first created some blueprints on a piece of paper. As you have seen in the course, you had things like coding exercises, you had videos, cheat sheets, frequently asked questions. So all these were items of the course. So these pieces of papers are like classes in Python, right? So for example, I defined that the icon of a coding exercise will look like a pencil, and then the coding exercise will start with this title followed by the number, and then we'll have the question which gives you the student the task for this exercise, and then after the question there will be the solution as a link. So this is a class, this is a blueprint, but this is not an instance. Now an instance is created when I go to Udemy and I actually write an instance of this blueprint, of this coding exercise. For example, I wrote a coding exercise about the match case block. So that is an instance, and then I created another exercise about the if-else conditional block. So that was a second instance, and in each instance I'm following this blueprint, this class. So similarly in programming, when we create large applications, first we create some blueprints, and there we define exactly what the instances of these blueprints will look like, the structure, we define the structure of these instances, and then we use those classes to create instances. Now you might be wondering, why was the video blueprint empty? Well, that is because videos are already defined as a blueprint, right? I'm not the first instructor to create videos. The other items, such as bug fixing exercises and coding exercises, were customized items that I planned, so I had to create some blueprints first. But videos are blueprints which have been created by other people before, so I just have to follow those blueprints and produce videos. So similarly in programming, there are cases when you have classes which have already been created by other people. An example of that would be the fpdf class. So we don't need to define that class, we just need to import the name of that class, fpdf, and then we create PDF instances using that class. So the same goes for videos in my case when I create a course. I just produce the videos because I know already the blueprint. So that was about classes versus instances. I hope that makes things a bit more clear. And now we're ready to create an application using classes. So I'll see you in the next video. Let's begin. Hey, welcome back. In this video, you will learn how to plan an OOP app. So an app which is built using classes. Let's begin. Let's create a PyCharm project first. I already created a project. I named it App 11 Hotel Booking. So as you can tell, this app will be an app where users can book an hotel and they can get like a reservation confirmation. So once you know what app you'll build, as a programmer you should think whether you want to use OOP or you just want to use functions to build your program. Now I already explained you that when you think that the app is large or it will be expanding later on, perhaps, and you see that there's a lot of interaction between the entities of an app, then it's a good idea to use object-oriented programming. And this app, the hotel booking app, meets those criteria. So it's quite a large app because there's a lot of things users can do on this app. So, how to plan the app? Well, first of all, you should write something on a piece of paper or perhaps in a text file, such as planning.txt. And here you can simply write down a few sentences about what users can do on this app. For example, user can see a list of hotels. User can book a hotel. User can get a reservation confirmation or reservation ticket, whatever you call it, after they have booked the hotel. Now, we might also add more features here, such as the user can pay by credit card, but we want to make a minimal app for now. So let's say that the requirements from our customers was just to see the list of hotels, to book a hotel, and to get a reservation at the end. In the next days, we will add more features to this program, and by having a program built in OOP, that makes it much easier to add features. So you just add a class called credit card to that app and you don't actually change the current structure of the app. So it's very easy to extend your programs. So let's start with a minimal app first. So once you have written a few sentences, then the next thing to do is you want to find out what classes you want to use. The trick for that is that you want to look for nouns in the sentences. For example, you have a user, right? So perhaps you need a user class. And then you have hotel. So we'll have a hotel class as well. And maybe a reservation, which you can call it reservation or a ticket or reservation confirmation or reservation ticket. So these are the three classes that I see in this app. And that can be some simple planning without going into more details. And that could be some simple planning to get you started and to help you to reason how to create apps in object-oriented programming. So with that plan in mind, let's start coding in the next video. I'll see you there. Hey, welcome back. In this video, we'll start coding in an .py file. So please create a Python file in the project root directory. Name it main.py, and start writing the classes that we planned in the previous video. So that is a user class, a hotel class, and a reservation ticket class. So class user, let's write pass for now, class hotel, pass, and class reservation ticket, pass. And then we think about what methods each of these classes should have. So let's start with the user class. The user can see a list of hotels, right? So maybe we would have a method such as view hotels, right? Which could be empty for now. And then what else do we have about the user? Let's split this to the right. Like that. The user can book a hotel. So now the question is, should this class have a book method, or should the book method be part of the hotel class? The short answer is the book method is part of the hotel class. Why? Well, because the book method applies to the hotel class. So when you think about methods, try to think in the sense of book what? And the answer is book a hotel. It doesn't make sense to say book what? A user. We don't book a user, right? So this method is part of the hotel, not part of the user. The same goes now for reservation ticket. User can get a reservation ticket. Well, we would say define generate a reservation ticket, right? Pass here for now, pass there. So we generate what? A reservation ticket. This makes more sense. And that brings us to the view hotels method. Does this method make sense for this user class anyway? So we said that book a hotel, generate a reservation ticket. But does it make sense with a view hotels user? It doesn't make sense actually. So the question here is, perhaps we should remove this method from this class. And then the next question is, since this class doesn't have any methods, should there be a class user, or should we remove this also? The answer is, we should remove that class since we don't have any methods to associate to that class. Of course, this is not the ultimate final decision, because later on perhaps you'll get some more requirements for a new feature, and for that feature you might have to add a user class. But for now, given these requirements, we don't need a user class. So these are the final classes we have in the planning phase. So with that in mind, we can go to the next video and keep going with the next step. I'll tell you what the next step is. I'll see you in the next video. Hey, welcome back. Previously we typed in these two classes and each of them has one method, and the methods are currently empty. Now what is the next step? Well, you might be tempted to write the code inside the methods, but a better way is to write the program main loop. What is the main loop? Well, we have used the main loops previously. It is the place where you call the functions of your code when you're using functions. In our case, we're using classes, so this is the place here where we create instances of those classes. So what this app will consist of is, it's just a command line interface app. So we're not going to go into web development or graphical user interfaces because I want to focus on object-oriented programming. So I don't want to get lost into details. Therefore, this app will be simple. So we're going to get some input from the user using an input function for different things like the name of the user and so on. And then we're going to print out a ticket in the command line as simple text, although you can probably also add some code which generates a PDF ticket. That will be very easy for you to do later on. But for now, let's just focus on building a program with a command line interface. So the main loop will be here. First of all, we want to print out the list of hotels, right? Then we want to ask the user what hotel they want to book and so on. So this here will be the main loop where the things happen. So let's print the list of hotels. Please find attached in the lecture resources the hotels.csv file and then copy and paste it in your project directory. So I'm just pasting it here and it looks like this. So it has this first row. This will serve as a header. So we have the ID, the name, the city, the capacity of the hotel, and whether the hotel is available or not. So we have IDs, this and that and that. We have the name, for example, tourist sunny apartment, the city Anchorage, capacity 4 persons, and it is currently available. So yes is the value for the available column. So we have 3 hotels. Now let's print out those hotels. So to do that, we want to import pandas. We could also have these in an SQL database. So for simplicity, let's have them in a CSV file, because as I already mentioned, we don't want to go into much intricate details. So we just want to focus on the classes instead of other libraries. Pandas will be installed as a package first, and then create a data frame with pandas.read CSV and provide hotels.csv there. And then you just want to print out the data frame here, right? So the program will start and it will show a list of hotels. So normally you'd have a web app perhaps where the user can search a hotel. But for now, as I mentioned, we want to have this a minimal app. That's why I'm printing out all the hotels there. So at this point, you can run the program to see the first results. Once the pandas library is installed, and it's still installing in my case, pandas was installed, so I can run the program, and we should see the list of hotels. Right, so now next is we can ask the user to enter an ID. So ID is equal to input, enter the ID of the hotel, and then we say hotel is equal to hotel, and we give the ID of a hotel as a parameter. So we just realized that we need a new parameter. Therefore, we create a def underscore underscore init method with self and ID as a parameter, and then we say pass here for now. So that will create an instance of a hotel, right? Using that ID. So perhaps the user enters 188 and we create the hotel instance for that 188. And then we say hotel.book. But we cannot book the hotel if it's not available. So perhaps first we want to say if hotel.available. So available now is a new method we just realized we need. So we go to the hotel class and we add a diff available methods, which makes sense, right? Available what? A hotel. So this belongs to the hotel class. Pass for now. So this method is going to return maybe a true boolean data type if the hotel is available. So we're going to check the data frame row for that hotel and return true or false. So if the hotel is available, then we book the hotel, right? Now we don't want to go into further details, for example, adding dates as arguments. You can do that later, but for now let's focus on a minimal product. So once we book the hotel, then we stay here and we say reservation ticket is equal to reservation ticket class. And perhaps here we should specify that we want to book this particular hotel. So the reservation ticket should point to a particular hotel, right? And perhaps we also need to ask for the name of the customer. So input, enter your name. And so this reservation ticket, which has a typo here, reservation ticket will have a name and a hotel as parameters. Therefore, these two should go inside a def init method as well. Self, name, hotel. So these are just two variables. Don't confuse them with these variables. And actually I can change them to customer name so that you make the distinction. hotel object, perhaps, and just pass for now. And then, so once we create an instance of that ticket, then we point to that instance, and then we point to the generate method of that instance. And so this method here will have something like an f string, like, you know, that name of the customer will be that customer name and the hotel name as well. And then we will return that content, and then we will print out the output of the generate method. So the output will be this content, this here. So that will be basically the reservation ticket, right? Let's keep it pass for now. And yeah, that's it. The user has a ticket. Of course, in a real world scenario, this would be a bit more advanced. Perhaps we would give them a PDF ticket, which they can print and they can go back to the hotel with that ticket to check in. But for now, we just want to print it out in the command line for the sake of simplicity. Else then, just print out hotel is not free. Yeah, that's it. That's the program main loop. That's how the program will work. And now by having that, you can have a better idea what you will write in these methods. So basically you have like the logic here, and then next we will write the content of each of these methods. And let's do that in the next video. So I'll see you there. Hey, welcome back. So far we have the main loop, but our methods are basically empty. So in this video we want to code the methods. Let's do some housekeeping first. PyCharm is telling us that we need one more break line in here because we need 2 break lines around class definitions to be in line with the PEP 8 guide. Also the ID here, this is a built-in name, so in that case it's a good idea to have another name for this. For example, hotel ID, since ID is an occupied name in Python. So same goes for here. Hotel ID. So this is different from this, by the way. So we will get the hotel ID from here and we'll pass it here. So this here should also be hotel ID. And yeah, so that's fine. Now let's populate the methods with code. To do that, we want to refer to the main loop again. So we want to follow the order of the main loop. So let's see what we've got here. We print out the def, that's fine. We're not interacting with our classes here yet. And then we get the ID from the user. And here we create a hotel instance with a hotel ID, right? So the user will enter perhaps one of these IDs here. Let's say 134, so hotel. So then 134 will go in here. And then we check if the hotel is available, right? So this method here now will do something like if that is the case, return true, else return false. So if the hotel where df ID is equal to that hotel ID, but see that if we just do hotel ID here, this will not be recognized because this is a local variable of the init method, right? So this doesn't recognize that. and PyCharm will underline this in red. It doesn't do it because we have another global variable in here. So if we change this hotel ID here to something else like hotel ID with capital I and capital D, this as well. So now this is a different name from this, and now this is underlined in red. PyCharm is complaining that, oh, this reference is not resolved. It has not been defined because it's part of this method only. So what we can do is we can say self.hotelID, so this one is equal to hotel ID. And then here we say self.hotelID. In this case, this will be fine. So again, the flow is this. The user enters a hotel ID here, and this goes in here, so 134, and then from here, this will go in here, and then from here, it will go and be assigned to this self.hotelID. So self.hotelID will be equal to 134, right? And then here we check, give me the available field, so which corresponds to this. Let me split it to the right in here. So we want the available value, which could be yes or it could be no, with that expression. Actually, we do this before in here, and then we say, let's say, we store that in variable, right? Availability, and then we say if availability is equal to yes, then we return true, right? I have a typo here. And so let me explain you this expression first, what this is. Well, this is the equivalent of saying that, oh, import pandas, and then create a pandas data frame, right? And then let's suppose that hotel ID is 134, right? One of these, yeah, this first hotel. And then this expression here, let me remove self, because for now in this session we have hotel ID, we don't have it as self.hotelID. Availability now is equal to yes. So the variable is equal to yes. And actually we also need to apply a squeeze method here to get the actual string only, because this will give us like a series. We worked with pandas before in the course, so you should be able to tell the difference between this and that. So this is a string and this is what we want. So let's add a squeeze method as well in here. So if availability is equal to yes, we return true, otherwise we return false. So in that case, if hotel available, it means that if available returns true, then we book the hotel which we instantiated in here. So now we go to the book method and see what we can do in here. So what should the book method do? Well, the available method checks if the hotel is available. The book method books a hotel by changing its availability to no. So from yes, we want to change that to no, so that if the hotel is booked, it shouldn't be available anymore. Of course, these should have other variables such as the dates and so on, but let's not go into those details. Focus on object-oriented programming. So the case with this would be this expression here. So put that in there, so that gives us that row, that particular cell, and we want to reassign that to no. And after that, we want to say df.toCSV because we want to update the actual file on disk, right? So far, we're just in the data frame, in the Python session, but we want to save the changes to the CSV file. So use the same name, hotels.csv, to override that existing file, and also use index equal to false so that Python doesn't add another index. Column index to the CSV file. So that is what the available method should do. It should return true or false, and that is what the book method should do. So with that, we have gone up to this point in here, right? And before we go further with the other methods, let's check if we're doing things correctly in here. So let me run this program, right? And you should get the list of hotels from this line as a data frame, and then you should get enter the ID of the hotel from this line. So let's enter an ID. Enter an ID which has the available field equal to yes. If you don't have that, you can always change this manually, this CSV file. You can just write this. If it was no, you can write this to yes, save the file, and so on. So I'm going to choose 134. Press enter. We got an error. The problem here is that this input function, as you know, gives you always a string. So even if you enter 134, that will be treated as a string. So hotel ID will be equal to a string. And the problem with that is that when we check that string against the data frame value, the data frame value for the ID is an integer. So that means the data frame value, the actual value in here, 134, will not be equal to our string. To fix that, you want to go to hotels.csv and add a d type is equal to string, str. So that will load all the values as strings, even the numbers, 134, 188, 655, and so on. The problem with that is that the capacities will be treated also as strings, which could be a problem. So a better solution would be to specify only the data frame columns which you want to be treated as strings, so the ID in this case. So that could be supplied as a dictionary, like that. So ID here, make sure that your column is also named ID, ID here, ID there. Let's run the program again. So 134, press enter, enter your name, Ardit, and yeah, no errors this time. You can check hotels.csv and you'll see that my value in the available field was changed to no. So things are working fine, the hotel was booked, it's not available anymore, and now the next step is to print out a ticket for the user. So we need to implement the methods of the reservation ticket class. Let's do that in the next video. Thanks. Hey, welcome back. In this video we will work on the reservation ticket method. So far we have implemented the methods up to here. So the book method, the available method of the hotel class. Now we go and implement the methods which are called from now on. So first we create a reservation ticket instance out of the reservation ticket class, which gets a name and a hotel argument. So customer name and hotel object. So basically you could say customer name is equal to name. So name is this name in here. And then hotel objects is equal to hotel. So hotel is this object. So note that name is a string, right? An instance of a string class. So even Python has classes, so str is a class, right? Similarly, when you say class reservation ticket, just pass or whatever. If you add some methods, that's fine too. And if you say reservation ticket, this is also a class. You see class here, class there. And so then you have instances of strings such as ardit. That is an instance of the string class. And then you have instances of the reservation ticket class. So that here is an instance of that class. Now, you don't get any beautiful thing printed out, because that is the nature of this class. It's not supposed to look like a string, right? But it's still an instance. Now, you could also create string instances like this. So that is the equivalent of this. But Python, the interpreter, allows us to write the instances by just mentioning this for strings. So this is like some magic. It's called syntactic sugar. So basically some magic around the syntax so that you don't have to write the instance like that. So that was some more lecturing about instances, right? So hotel is a hotel instance. String is a string instance. And so then we generate the ticket. So let's add some code in here. You can say content is equal to f. Let's have this like a multi-line string. Thank you for your reservation. Here are your booking data. So you can say then name, and there you have a placeholder. So this would be the customer name. Again, can you write it like customer name like that? Well, no, because this is a local variable of the init function. So in that case, we make this an attribute of a reservation ticket instance. We do that using self. So self is an instance, and then we add customer name to that instance. So customer name now is an attribute of that instance, and the value of this attribute is equal to whatever the user passes in here, right? So name, if the user enters ardit, then the attribute, this will be equal to ardit, or another, John, whatever it is. And then we use here self.customer_name. Right, so that's one. Hotel name, perhaps. We should include the hotel name in the ticket as well. So that would be self.hotel. Now this is interesting here. So we should be able to get the name from the hotel. But the hotel doesn't have a name attribute. So perhaps we should add a name attribute here for the hotel, right? Which would be equal to df.log. It's the same syntax as this, mostly, so I can write that in here. And we want the name. So what I'm getting here is this value. Tourist sunny apartment, or snow palace, or city break-in. So that is the name column, and that code will give us that. And also we need squeeze to extract the actual string. And then we extract the name out of that hotel. So hotel now is not recognized yet, because we need to create that as an attribute of the reservation ticket instance. So self hotel is equal to hotel object, right? So you see we have a hierarchy of objects and attributes, right? So we have the reservation ticket instance, and the reservation ticket instance has as an attribute a hotel instance. And a hotel instance has as an attribute a string instance, right? Here, self.name, self.hotel. You see that that's a hierarchy of attributes, and this makes the code more robust and more readable and also more extendable. You can easily extend it later. As you'll see, we will add more classes later on. So we extract the name of the hotel. Similarly, you could also get the city from the hotel, but I'll just leave it as it is. So just the customer name and the hotel name as well. So that is a content variable, and of course you need to return that content variable, and then this will print out that content variable in here. So let's try to run this. We get the list of hotels. Oh, no hotel is available now, so if you try to say 188, you'll get this hotel is not free. So what I'll do is I'll go to hotels and make the second hotel available. So write yes there, save the CSV file with Ctrl S, don't forget, and then run main.py again. So let's try 188, which is available. 188, press enter, enter your name, Ardit, and then that is our ticket, a reservation confirmation. So thank you for your reservation. Here are booking data, name Ardit, hotel name Snow Palace. We can go with this ticket to the check-in desk and we can check in for that room. Of course, there are more details to this. You need like a PDF perhaps to go to the hotel with that printed PDF. And you also need perhaps a credit card. You need to have paid that hotel at some point. Oh, but that is a feature we will add tomorrow, a credit card payment feature. For now, this is the complete code for today. So that is how you create programs using OOP, object-oriented programming. So your program is oriented around objects, a hotel object, a reservation ticket object. This keeps the code more manageable, so perhaps you can also add later a method here which cancels the ticket, like def cancel, right? That is also possible. It is easy to add. And yeah, with that, thanks a lot for following and I'll talk to you later. Hey, welcome to today's project. In this video, I'll give you the requirements for the project you have to build for today. This will be an OOP program, so you'll use classes to build this. Let me show you what you are expected to build. So I have built this already, it's inside main.py here, so I'll run the finished program so to show you what this app consists of. So as soon as the user runs the app, they'll see these data. So we have this header, ID, name, price, and in stock. So the data have 4 columns. You can find the data attached in the lecture resources under the name articles.csv. So it looks like this. So these data are also being shown in here. Then the user is being asked to enter the ID of an article they want to buy. So let's try 101 for the mouse article. 101. Press enter. Nothing happens here, but in the project directory, a receipt.pdf file was generated. So this is the output of the program. So that's the receipt. That's the number of the product, 101. That's the name of the article, mouse laser sharp, which corresponds to this second article, and that's the price of the article. Now, we did cover how to generate PDFs with Python previously in the course, but if you missed that video, then in the lecture resources you will find a small script, PDF_code, which looks like this, so you can get that code and you can adjust it in your OOP program, in the program you'll build, so that the program generates the PDF file as a receipt for the user. And that's what the program consists of. Now, the articles.csv file was not changed, but as an optional feature, if you like, it's not a requirement, but if you like, you can change this number to 86, for example, when the user buys that article. or in our case it was the other article, mouse laser sharp, if you like to do that. However, the requirements are that you don't need to change the file. So we keep it simple, and you need to use classes. So that is a requirement for this app. And with that, in the next video, I'll show you my solution. So I'll see you there. Hi, in this video, I'll show you the solution to the project. So that's my final code. It's one file, main.py. And I've got two classes here. So that's the complete code. The classes are article and receipt. The article class gets an article ID as input from the user, and we create an instance variable using that article ID. This could also be article ID. Either way, it's fine. Self-ID is also fine. ID is a keyword, but when it is attached to something else, like self, then there's no issue with it being a reserved keyword in Python. Then we extract the name and the price from the data frame, which we loaded in here. Note that the data frame has been loaded with ID as a string data type. So when we compare the ID here, we are comparing the ID against the user ID, which will be received also as a string. So string against a string. Then in the available method, I am extracting the number. So that number, right, 0 or 87, whatever it is. So that number will be stored here. So this will be either 0 in our example, given these data, or 87. And I return that number directly. Now, here you could also have this as if in stock is greater than 0, return true, else return false. However, this is not necessary, and it's a good idea to actually return the number itself, because you may also need it later. You may need the actual number. So what will happen here is that if this returns 0, and down here we check if article.available, so we check the value returned by this will be evaluated to false if the available method returns 0. So basically this is like, hey, if 0, print hello, and hello will not be printed out because 0 is like false. But if 0 was another number, like 87, then hello will be printed out. Right, that's what we're doing here. So I prefer this way. Then we have the receipt class, which gets the article as input. So article is the instance here. So we get the article ID from the user, we instantiate the article class by creating an article instance. We check if the article is available through the available method we just covered, and then we create an instance of a receipt providing the article as an input. And then we generate that receipt. So generate is this method here, which contains all the code of the PDF creation library, fpdf. So here I'm giving the number of the article, self.article.id. So ID is a property of the article instance. So that's a property, an instance variable, in other words, property attribute, whatever you call it. And then we have article.name, article.price. So all these will be printed out in the receipt here. And that's the final code. So that's my solution. I know yours is a bit different. That's fine, but I hope you got the expected output. So thanks a lot for following, and I'll talk to you in the next days tomorrow. See you.